My name is Chris Dutton, and I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all, graduates, parents, spouses, partners, children, friends, trustees, faculty, and staff to Vermont Law School's 42nd commencement. I'd like to welcome those in attendance who are members of all branches of the military as we recognize Armed Forces Day today. Thank you for your service to our country. I'd like to introduce to the audience those members of the Board of Trustees present in the platform. They are a hardworking group who take seriously their responsibilities for the governance and direction of the law school, and they're pleased to be present today as part of Vermont Law School's community. Please give a hand to the trustees. Seated behind the trustees are the members of the faculty. I'd especially like to recognize this year's Richard Brooks Distinguished Faculty Scholar, Stephanie Ferrier. Please join me in thanking this outstanding company of teachers and scholars, especially Professor Ferrier, whose successful labors bear fruit today. As many of you know, this will be Mark Muhuali's last commencement as president and dean. He has served 5 years in that role. Almost immediately on his assuming that responsibility, as most of you know, the national marketplace for law schools deteriorated. All of a sudden, folks lost the zeal to become lawyers. And the number of applicants to take the LSAT to go to law school dropped by 40%. Mark dealt with that crisis, and make no mistake, it has been a crisis, in a way that I think all of us could commend. With creativity and determination and persistence, Mark has helped stabilize the ship at Vermont Law School to the point now where we are actually doing quite well. And that success is in no small part due to Mark's creativity, his initiatives in helping secure financial benefits from both federal and state government, from a whole variety of philanthropic sources, and to change the focus of the law school to understand in a way that understands and appreciates the changing dynamics of a new generation of folks who are interested in becoming lawyers and interested in the broader curriculum, including the master's programs at VLS. It has been my distinct honor and privilege to serve with Mark these last several years. He is my friend, and I'd like to hope that you will recognize him today. Congratulations, Mark, and thank you. It's also my pleasure to introduce Mark's successor, visiting today from California, but soon to be settling into his new home here in Vermont. Welcome, Tom Mchenry. I'd like to recognize also Kinvin Roth, who served as dean here at Vermont Law School from 1996 to 2004. Kinvin, thank you. And also Anne Debevoise, whose husband Tom was one of the first deans of Vermont Law School, serving from 1974 to 1982. Tom was instrumental in making the school a reality, and Anne continues to serve the law school as a trustee emerita. Thank you, Anne. Finally, I'd like all of us to share a moment of silence to remember those members of our community who have passed away this year and whose presence is sorely missed. It is now my pleasure to introduce President and Dean Mark Muhuali.
Thank you, Chris. Trustees, honored guests, faculty, alumni, members of the fabulous graduating class of 2017. That includes our distance learning students and your families and friends. I am Mark Muhuali, President and Dean of Vermont Law School, and I'm delighted to talk to you on what, for most of you, is your very, very last day as students. Congratulations. Graduates, you've worked for this, and you deserve a great deal of credit. But first, I want to recognize the people who made your accomplishments possible. Would the following people please stand? The parents of our graduates, please stand. The partners of our graduates, the friends and supporters of our graduates, please stand. I also want to recognize and thank two other groups that have helped you reach this day. First, those dedicated professionals, the faculty sitting behind me, who have chosen a life of teaching. And the caring, hardworking staff of Vermont Law School. Please join me applauding the faculty and staff. And now, graduates, each of you who are on the cusp of becoming professionals, a few words with you. I can well imagine that after grade school and high school and earning a BA and a BS and who knows what other degree, and now a JD or a master's, you're feeling relief at last being done with the classroom. And now you're about to enter a completely different world, or for some of you, re-enter it, and that is the world outside of school. I have to tell you, though, you may be done with school, but the learning part is just beginning. Because the world outside of school is a great teacher. It's a different type of teacher than school, where the professor teaches you the lesson. In the case of the world, it gives you the facts, and you on your own figure out the lesson. What I'd like to do is talk about two simple lessons the world taught me. I was still in law school at Berkeley, although the lessons learned were from outside the classroom. So let me start at the end with two examples of the lessons learned, and then explain how the world gave me the facts that led to the lessons. Now, when stated out loud, the lessons are so simple and obvious that they almost go without saying. Here they are. 1, when asked to do something, tend to say yes, even if you don't know where it will lead. Just say yes. 2, it's worth it to take the initiative to talk to people, to reach out to them. Pretty simple, right? Pretty obvious. But let me tell you how the world taught me these lessons. It was February of my first year of law school. We just finished a civil procedure class. At the end of the class, a good friend, Paul, leaned over to me and said, "I'm going to a meeting of this new law review. Want to come?" Well, I'd known before law school that I simply was not interested in joining a law review. To be polite, however, I asked Paul, well, what's the new journal? He said, the Ecology Law Quarterly. Now, this was 1972, and I'm ashamed to admit that I had to ask, what's ecology mean? He said, well, I don't know either, but let's find out. So instead of saying no, which I was really close to doing, I mean this close, I said yes. Well, 2 years later, I was editor-in-chief of the Ecology Law Quarterly, a role, frankly, that taught me, that was much more fun than anything I'd done to date, taught me much about myself, and actually changed the course of my life, as I will now explain. So when I was at the Quarterly, I quickly figured out that we were running out of money. We had enough maybe for 2 or 3 more issues, and then we would have to close our doors. So I went to the dean, and I asked if the law school would support us financially, since the law school already supported the law review, the California Law Review. He declined. He wished me well. But he said that he just did not think that there was enough intellectual content in the new environmental field to support a law journal. We did subsequently close some of the financial gap by increasing the number of subscriptions, but we still didn't have enough to survive more than a few issues. So one day, a bunch of us at the Quarterly were sitting around lamenting the fact that although large law firms came to the campus to interview, mostly San Francisco law firms, governmental agencies and public interest nonprofits did not interview. Nor did they visit the school to talk about career opportunities, in the public interest sphere or the governmental sphere. That conversation amongst us, just sitting around, that could have been the end of it. It's just another moment of agreement that things were not what they seemed, should be, what they should be. But again, on a whim, I volunteered. I said, okay, I'll see if I can call somebody. I'll see if I can make one call. So I talked to an attorney at the Berkeley office of the then tiny 3-people Environmental Defense Fund in Berkeley, where I'd worked the summer before. And I called this attorney, and he readily agreed to come speak on the panel. And he suggested the name of a lawyer in the environmental section of the California Attorney General's office. So I called Deputy Attorney General Louise Rennie, who of course I didn't know, and she agreed to come to campus as well. So bear with me. The panel happened. It was okay. It was reasonably successful. But catch this. The guy from the Environmental Defense Fund brought along a colleague who happened to be visiting him that day. Rod Cameron was one of the founders of the Environmental Defense Fund. He'd raised a lot of money to do that. He asked me how things were going at the Ecology Law Quarterly. I replied that things were great, except we were going broke. He said he'd help. 2 months later, thanks to Rod, we had a $50,000 grant from the Ford Foundation. $50,000 was a lot of money in 1973. And it, plus the new subscriptions, tided us over until the school did, in fact, several years later, start subsidizing the journal. So, if I hadn't said yes when Paul suggested we visit that info session that day, or if I hadn't reached out to my colleague at EDF to assemble a careers panel, we wouldn't have received the grant. And perhaps the Quarterly, now in its 5th decade, wouldn't have made it. But that one panel gave to me twice. Right after law school, I worked at the legal aid office in Daly City, California, a gritty place. I hope no one here is from Daly City. A gritty place just south of San Francisco, mostly inhabited by, or substantially inhabited by the poor and the near poor. And I immediately became embroiled in a complicated land use case. And I knew from the start we would need help. And then I remembered Louise Rennie from the Attorney General's office, from that environmental section. So I called her out of the blue, and to my amazement, she remembered me from the visit to the panel at the law school a year earlier. I described our case, and I asked if the Attorney General would consider intervening on our side. She declined. But then she told me that they had an open position in the environmental section and asked if I would be interested. And that's how I ended up in the California Attorney General's office. And that's how I met the two lawyers with whom I started an environmental law firm in San Francisco that grew to 30 professionals and where I stayed for 25 years. And that led me coming to this law school that I'd heard of in the hills of Vermont to teach in the environmental curriculum. And that led to my standing right here before you now. All because of those two moments in law school when I said, yes, why not go to a meeting? And okay, yes, I'd reach out to a few people for a panel on jobs. Now, I'm not saying my life wouldn't have been happy and perhaps successful if I hadn't said yes and if I hadn't reached out. But it certainly wouldn't have been the life, it wouldn't have been this life. It would have been another life. So, to all of you, may I suggest that when asked, lean towards yes and make that small extra effort to reach out to people. You never know where it will lead you. And so please accept my congratulations on this day, the day of the end of your preparation and the start of a lifetime of learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm now pleased to introduce Jessica Bullock, who has been selected by her classmates to speak on their behalf. Jessica received a BA from the University of Vermont and her Master of Science in Education at Johns Hopkins University. She will graduate with a Juris Doctor today. During her time in South Royalton, Jessica was the editor-in-chief of the Vermont Law Review. She served on the Moot Court Advisory Board and was recognized as the best oralist at the 2016 Debevoise Moot Court Competition. She was a Social Justice Mission Scholar and an Albert Schweitzer Fellow. Her classmates recognized her with the presentation of the Student Bar Association Student Pro Bono Award. Please join me in welcoming Jessica Bullock.
Good morning, and congratulations to the Vermont Law School graduating class of 2017. Whether you've called Vermont Law School home for the past several years, or whether this is your first time stepping foot on campus, welcome. Vermont Law School is a special place. And if you're wearing a cap and gown today, or you're here supporting an alumni-to-be, you are part of what makes this place so unique and so powerful. Vermont Law School attracts and empowers leaders. One of the things that makes VLS so special is our school's commitment to equipping engaged citizens with the knowledge and skills necessary to make their vision of a better world a reality. Our school wants to make sure that the next generation of leaders understand accountability, appreciate the interconnectivity between the environment, policy, and the many facets of our diverse peoples and communities, and that they know how to advocate for themselves and for others when necessary. VLS stands for the belief that the status quo is no longer acceptable, and the people who self-select to come to this beautiful place and pursue higher education in the green foothills of Vermont resonate with that. VLS attracts people who want to change the world. We all came to Vermont Law School for a reason. It may have been because Vermont Law School is home to the top environmental law program in the country. It may have been because Vermont Law School offered a plethora of degree opportunities, specializations, hands-on learning experiences, from criminal law and restorative justice practices, to business, to food and agriculture, to water resources, to human rights law, and so much more. It's all right here. Or maybe, as one student told me, you came because Vermont Law School is the only law school in the country located in a town without a traffic light. A place that you can think, a place that you can learn, and a place that you can connect. Because most importantly, we came to Vermont Law School for the people. The folks who attend Vermont Law School, teach at Vermont Law School, and invest themselves in this community are leaders looking to spark change. That passion is as contagious as it is inspiring. And once you step onto VLS campus, you're hooked, because you found a home reflected in common energy, drive, and motivation. We all came here with a different mission, a different passion that makes us tick and gets us out of bed in the morning. Each graduate today is unique and about to embark on an individually tailored journey. But we didn't get to this moment alone. Many thanks are owed to many, many people. Throughout our time at VLS, we needed help, support, and guidance. And we, the class of 2017, would like to take a moment to thank our parents, spouses, family, and friends who visited Vermont Law School with us on Admitted Students Day, listened to us moan and groan about final exams and writing requirements, and came here today to celebrate our success. You lifted us up and you kept us on track. Thank you. We also want to recognize that we owe today in large part to the teachers and mentors who we met once we arrived at Vermont Law School. Professors who always kept their office doors open, who said yes to our ideas and ambitions, and who knew when to lecture and when to listen. Mentors who encouraged us to be creative and visionary by taking us to the island of Krimlossi, introducing us to the king of torts, or giving us a chance to draft our very own policy initiatives, who reminded us to be methodical in everything that we do, and that the client comes first. Whether they were guiding us to moot court competitions, dancing alongside us at gala, editing our thesis for the 100th time, or simply offering a kind word when it was needed the most, our professors and our school have been there for us every step of the way, and we cannot thank you enough. There are also some people in our lives who are not able to be here today for us to thank them. But we know that they are in our thoughts and in our hearts, and that their influence shaped our trajectory and helped us to become the people who we are in this moment. Perhaps most importantly, we owe today to each other. Fighting swans fly together. Regardless of the degree that you're earning today, we all worked hard to get here. And we couldn't have done it without that first friend on campus, the Carol buddy who left us motivational sticky notes before exams, and the collaborative environment that VLS encourages at this school. Living in a small town means that everyone knows everyone. When you arrive on campus, you meet your family for the next several years. And we are a family. We walk each other to early morning classes, we edit each other's writing, sometimes we engage in healthy debate, and we root for each other to get that internship or that job, even if we were applying to the same one. At VLS, the students are friends and colleagues in equal part, and that is very unique indeed. Thus, typical of a VLS student, when faced with the challenge of writing this speech, I reached out to my fellow fighting swans for help. I asked my classmates for inspirational quotes, for fond memories of our school and our time together, and for a final message that they would like to impart to our graduating class. The responses that I received were overwhelming, and you have a small piece of those sentiments tucked in each of your graduation packets. I hope that you enjoy reading them as much as I did. What was really amazing was that all of those responses crystallized into 3 common hopes that our class has for each of its graduating members. And I would like to close today by sharing those 3 wishes with you. Number 1, do good. There are 2 ways of exerting strength. One is pushing down, and the other is pulling up. Booker T. Washington. At Vermont Law School, students pull each other and the people around them up. You all came here with a mission and a vision, and as you transition into your next phase, remember to lift others up around you, empower voices that too often remain unheard, and use the tremendous gift of knowledge that you gained here to make your community and our world a better place. 2, be well. We may encounter defeats, but we must not be defeated. Maya Angelou. We're all about to start a new chapter in our lives, and that's exciting. On a sunny day like today with our loved ones around us, we feel invincible. But there are things in life that are beyond our control, and everyone battles their own demons. Please know that this community cares for each other, and you should never feel alone. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take care of the people who come into your lives. Stay well. 3. Finally, know no fear. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela. You came to VLS with passion, and you are departing with knowledge. Don't be afraid to advocate, to challenge, to hold high standards, to step out of your comfort zone, and to take up the mantle as the next generation of leaders that everyone at VLS knows that we can be. Thank you all for joining us today to celebrate a class of graduating students who understand that knowledge is powerful, and that with that power comes a charge to exercise your strength to make our world a better place. To my classmates, who I know will spark incredible change and hope in the lives of those that they touch, do good, be well, stay fearless, and best of luck in your upcoming adventures. We did it.
Thank you, Jessica. That was wonderful. Thank you. We will now present awards to members of the graduating class and law school family. Description of the awards can be found in your commencement program immediately following the order of exercises. First, it's my honor to present the Learned Hand Award for academic excellence. This was established by the late Honorable Sterry Waterman, as in Waterman Classroom Building. Sterry Waterman was the 2nd chair of Vermont Law School Board of Trustees and for many years a colleague of Judge Hand on the 2nd Circuit Court of Appeals. The award is given for the graduating student with the highest cumulative grade point average as of the end of the 5th semester. I'm very pleased to announce that this year's award will be shared by 2 students. This year's representative of all our students who strive for intellectual excellence following Learned Hand's example are the 2 students, William Lowry and Patrick Maris. Will came to Vermont Law School. No, Patrick, I'm going to not make you stand here while I do this, okay? You can come up in a minute. Will came to Vermont Law School with a Bachelor of Science from Virginia Commonwealth University and 20 years of work experience as a senior project manager and project engineer and a business consultant. He has a passion for animals and their protection and is a member of one of the school's first 2-year accelerated JD class. Unfortunately, Will can't be here today. Also receiving this year's Learned Hand Award is Patrick Maris. Patrick has a BS from the University of Maine and came to VLS after working 5 years as a project scientist for an environmental consulting business in Portland, Maine, and as the urban watershed coordinator for Cumberland County in Maine. In addition to his high academic achievement, Patrick has been a mainstay of the student body. He was elected by the Student Bar Association as the recipient of the Student Service Award. He was runner-up in the Law Review Note Competition. He was a Dean's Fellow and an Academic Success Program Mentor and a teaching assistant. And he won Best Brief and Best Oralist in the Debevoise Moot Court Competition, and then represented Vermont Law School at the regional rounds of the National Moot Court Competition, where his team again won Best Brief and made it to the final round. Now, we trustees especially treasure Patrick because he served as a student trustee, and I've come to know him well in that capacity and have to say that in addition to everything else, he's a great human being. Patrick, come up. The second award is named in honor of our much loved and esteemed former dean, Maximilian Kepner. The Kepner Award was established by the Board of Trustees to honor Max on the occasion of his retirement as dean, and it recognizes the graduating student who, by personal example throughout her or his law school career, exemplifies the attributes demonstrated by Max: competency, integrity, respect, fair-mindedness, and public service. This year, the award is presented to a student who epitomizes all of the virtues and values that Max Kepner exemplified. You've already heard about Jessica Bullock's academic achievements. Let me spend a few minutes talking about her work as founder of SPEAK, that's capital S-P-E-A-K. SPEAK began as a VLS group, student group, but has since grown into a local nonprofit organization that provides speech and debate training. Through this nonprofit, Jessica brought this training to the local community and the world, as in our motto. On a local level, Jessica founded the Vermont Prison Debate Initiative, providing training to over 50 participants housed in Vermont's female and juvenile correction facilities. She also collaborated with the bar and the bench in Vermont to pilot a mock trial program for high school students. But she didn't stop there. SPEAK also provided international speech instruction to trainers and students at organizations in Italy, in Israel, and in China. Jessica, come up again. It's now my honor to introduce Christopher Smith. Chris is the representative of the Vermont Law School Alumni Association. Just as all you are extraordinary, the 7,000 alumni are extraordinary. And so you're joining a family of over 7,000 alumni. Christopher is a 2014 graduate of VLS. He joined the board of the Alumni Association's mentoring committee. He's been actively engaged in the VLS community since his days as a student, when he was the Student Bar Association president, a member of the Vermont Journal of Environmental Law and the Alliance. His work as an attorney has been in service to the state of Vermont. Currently, he is the director for capital markets at the Vermont Department of Financial Regulation. Please welcome Chris Smith.
That was a little low. Good morning, Dean Muhuali, trustees, administration, faculty, staff, family and friends, and most importantly, graduates. As Dean Muhuali mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the Vermont Law School Alumni Association, and I have the distinct honor of presenting the Alumni Award for the member of the class whose thoughtful insight, interest, and energy enriched the school community during their years in residence. The Alumni Association gives this award to a person who represents Vermont Law's mission by enriching the lives of those in the school community and the communities of the Upper Valley and Vermont at large. This award goes to the student who exemplifies Vermont Law's values by showing constant respect and kindness to other students, faculty, administration, staff, and alumni. Honorees actively support other students, ensuring successful and rich experiences at Vermont Law School. I first want to note, for those of you who aren't intimately familiar with Vermont Law School, that the award criteria may sound exceptional. The problem is that at Vermont Law School, that type of exceptional is almost run-of-the-mill. After all, swans of a feather flock together. The community of students that Vermont Law School attracts makes our job of selecting this award incredibly difficult, and every year as we deliberate, I am ever more proud and humbled to call myself a fighting swan. The 2017 recipient of the Alumni Award is distinguished with credentials as an advocate, academic, and community leader. To quote fellow board member Ashley Stetzer, JD Class of 2015, this year's recipient brings a certain aplomb to everything they do. This person thinks locally and globally, exemplifying the VLS motto, Lex Pro Urbe et Orbe, law for community and the world. As an advocate, this honoree was an advanced clinician in the Environmental and Natural Resources Clinic, leading peers in research. As a student fellow for the Applied Center for Human Rights, they worked with non-governmental organizations in ongoing litigation and projects. In the 2016 Northeast Regional Trial Competition, this person flexed their advocacy skills, receiving distinction for knowledge of trial procedure, preparedness, and overall performance. As a scholar, this year's honoree produced monthly summaries for the American Bar Association's Environmental and Brownfield Committee regarding EPA law and policy. The recipient assisted Professor Jennifer Taub as she edited Aspen's white-collar crime textbook, and assisted Professor Mark Latham as he authored a law review article on cybersecurity. And they served as a managing editor for the Vermont Journal of Environmental Law. Finally, as a community leader, our honoree served as a student ambassador, giving tours, speaking with prospective and new students, and assisting with special projects and events. They sat on the board of Barrister's Bookstore, serving as both secretary, then vice president. They led the Campus V-Day campaign to end violence against women and directed 2 annual productions of the Vagina Monologues, proceeds of which go to the local domestic abuse helpline. This person served first as co-chair, then publicity chair of the LGBTQ Alliance, which this year received the Student Bar Association's Student Organization Service Award for the 5th time, the most of any student group. Lastly, this year's recipient served alongside faculty on the school's curriculum committee and in a special envoy to the administration on gender inclusion on campus. Everybody, I am incredibly proud to present this year's Alumni Award for enriching the VLS community to an incredible fighting swan and someone I am grateful to call a friend and colleague, Brianna C. Hayes.
Wow. Upon the retirement of Dean Jeff Shields in 2012, a group of trustees and donors established a fund to honor Jeff and his wife, Jeannie's commitment to philanthropy at the law school. The Jeff and Jeannie Shields Prize was established as an annual award given to a member of the community who demonstrated a unique philanthropic contribution to the law school. Today, we honor a friend of the law school, Jonathan Wasserman is a vice president and associate general counsel at Bristol Myers Squibb, where he worked with a VLS alumnus, Chris Wren, class of '99. Jonathan's office was across from Christopher's, and he was there when Christopher died suddenly of a brain aneurysm in October 2014 at the age of 44. You know, in times of grief and sadness, it is not unusual for a fundraising initiative memorializing the deceased to occur. Many people will set a goal of establishing an endowed fund. However, I have to say it is rare that adequate funds are raised to reach the endowment threshold. It takes someone with persistence, energy, and commitment to make it happen. Jonathan Wasserman was a force behind the Christopher Braxton Wren Memorial Scholarship Fund that benefits students. In total, the fund raised in excess of $60,000. So it is my pleasure to award the 2017 Shields Prize to the force behind the Christopher Braxton Wren Memorial Scholarship Fund. Mr. Wasserman is unable to join us today, but we appreciate his generosity and his commitment to the memory of a Vermont Law School alumnus. Now, I want now to announce the winner of a new award, the Philanthropic Leadership Award. This award recognizes someone who has shown extraordinary generosity to the law school in a given year or over a period of years. Philanthropy is essential for us. As you're all used to paying tuition, it isn't enough to run the school, and philanthropy makes the difference. It's with the greatest pleasure that I name Vermont Law School's first winner of the Philanthropic Leadership Award to Robert B. Fisk, Jr., a long-standing member of our board. Bob, would you please come forward and endure this for a minute? Stand here for a minute. So I'm going to make Bob endure this for a minute here. Let me tell you that standing before you is someone who, besides being a great benefactor of Vermont Law School, has graced the legal profession with a multitude of talents. Bob is senior counsel at Davis, Polk & Wardell, where he has a lifetime of high-profile litigation in the fields of professional liability, securities, product liability, and white-collar crime. And more, Bob was the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, where he personally handled high-profile cases against major figures in organized crime, successfully, I might add. Bob's initial connection with Vermont Law School began 30 years ago as a parent. His son, Robert B. Fisk III, received his JD in 1990. Bob has served on the Board of Trustees for more than 15 years, serving 2 terms in the 90s and joining the board in 2011. And over this time, Bob has given well in excess of $1 million to Vermont Law School, supporting projects of all kinds, the building projects for the library, for Oaks Hall, the Debevoise Hall. Those are what you students sort of walk through and live in every day is in no small part the result of this man's generosity. He's given to the loan repayment funds and in honor of former deans, and constant and significant support of the annual fund, a history of generosity spanning now 3 decades. So, Bob, thank you for your service. Here, I'm going to give you
Thank you, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, it's always been rewarding to introduce our graduation speaker. But this introduction gives me unique pleasure, not only because of the qualities of the individual, but because her accomplishments go so much to the heart of the mission of Vermont Law School. Most recently, Lois Schiffer served as the General Counsel of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. In her role at NOAA, she has overseen legal issues relating to management of the nation's marine fisheries, protection of marine mammals, threatened and endangered species, coastal zone management, as well as monitoring oceanic, atmospheric, and climate data. Ms. Schiffer has a long and distinguished career as one of this country's most preeminent lawyers. Prior to her role as the chief lawyer at NOAA, she served as general counsel to National Public Radio, chief counsel to the National Capital Planning Commission, and worked for the Audubon Society. She also served as the top environmental lawyer in the Department of Justice under President Clinton. We're delighted that she has agreed to join us in celebrating the class of 2017. Lois Schiffer, it is the greatest pleasure to introduce you and to welcome you to a community that admires your work and that celebrates the opportunity to grant you an honorary degree.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. I am so pleased to be here. Indeed, it is a high honor for me, an environmental lawyer for 40 years, to receive an honorary degree from the premier environmental law school. Thursday, a friend of mine died unexpectedly, and so I dedicate this speech to the memory of Joan Burzon. Importantly, congratulations to you, the Vermont Law School students receiving degrees today, in recognition of your hard work and educational achievements. I join your families, friends, colleagues, and faculty and staff in celebrating your significant accomplishment. A graduation is also called a commencement, meaning an opportunity as well as an obligation to move forward. It is your opportunity and obligation at this particularly challenging time for our nation and our democracy to which I will address my remarks. I speak today of our country, established under a constitution that reflects important principles of democracy, justice, equality, and the rule of law. We have had challenges in applying these principles, but the rule of law has held. Yet, since the 2016 election, we wake each morning to news that causes us to think what is happening to our country. You graduates, as law-trained people who build, I would say, on the encouragement to say yes of President Muhuali and the stirring words of Jessica Bullock, knowing that you have skills and values, you as law-trained people have a clear understanding of our U.S. Constitution, its 3 branches of government and separation of powers, and its framework for a rule of law that we must hold on to. You have studied how our nation's institutions and the values they reflect, executive, Congress, courts, and the press, as well as the role of citizens as voters and petitioners. At a time when the rule of law seems to be in chaos, how can you use this training to reassert our democracy? For those of you from other countries, please learn from our challenge. Since many of you have studied in Vermont Law School's premier field, environmental law, my career field, I will focus on how the environment and the environmental laws that protect it can provide a common ground to bring people together to reconfirm and resecure this rule of law and the important values and statutory and constitutional principles that underlie that concept. You are our hope, and I will urge you to take up the cause. What is the rule of law? Excerpts from an eloquent statement by the Secretary General of the United Nations made in 2004 provide a good definition. Quote, a principle of governance in which all persons, institutions, and entities, public and private, including the state itself, are accountable to laws that are publicly promulgated, equally enforced, and independently adjudicated. It requires as well measures to ensure adherence to the principles of supremacy of law. That's the end of the quote. This principle of rule of law that everyone in our country, including the president, vice president, and their aides, are subject to the laws, and its corollary from the U.S. Constitution, that each branch of government has an important checks and balances role, is implicit in every course you have taken in law school. The principle is exhibited in the orderly transition of power when a new president is sworn in. As law school graduates, you have a particular understanding that our country is founded on a constitution that reflects our social contract, a fundamental understanding that we are a society together with reciprocal commitments and benefits. While we may differ as to the specific content of these obligations and benefits, or the most effective means to carry out these commitments, no one can honestly expect that he or she lives in a country alone without interdependence with the other people who also reside here. We cannot keep rivers from being polluted without community. We cannot provide for the common defense or promote the general welfare without working together, often through our federal government. And as law-trained people, you know that the goal of the law is the search for the truth, bolstered by the Socratic method, the adversary principle, and the rules of professional responsibility that bind licensed lawyers. Our president disregards all of these principles. Instead, he marches to his own drummer as to ethics and the separation of personal business from the public interest. His ad hominem challenges to individual judges and to the authority of courts is startling. The ban on Muslim travelers, so quickly set aside by a number of judges, ignored fundamental legal precepts. Certainly, the recent removal of FBI Director Comey in the midst of the FBI's investigation of whether there is a Russian connection to the election and to his campaign raises concerns. Other actions may not abrogate laws, but are certainly challenges to customs and norms, pulling EPA climate change data from the public website, failing to make personal tax returns available, withholding the list of visitors to the White House. The crucial role of a free press is mocked and impeded. Especially troublesome is the post-truth, alternative facts approach to knowledge. So the times seem particularly unruly. Our long-established principles for organizing our nation are assaulted daily. It becomes easier to attack others than to join as a community to create a better future. Truth itself becomes a casualty. So we despair for our country. We need a non-divisive collective way forward with hope. Protecting the environment is a strong place to start. Let me first talk about our shared environment. All of us breathe the air, drink the water, view the beautiful Vermont landscapes, perhaps hike in the Green Mountains, or we have a favorite spot elsewhere, a garden, a park, a backyard, or even a little patch of sky. We live on the same planet, now affected by climate change. This shared physical environment provides common ground to start to talk, including with those who may disagree with us. Everyone here shares that environment, whatever you studied in law school and whether or not you attended law school. So for each of you in the audience, listen well. For those of you who have studied environmental law or other areas of law based on common ground among our people, you have a particularly strong tool. It is our common environment, and so it is to that tool that I now turn. So how can each of us use the environment, and to those of you with the training, environmental law, to understand and heal our nation? I have some ideas about that, as my work has been to use the tools of environmental law to protect our, and I stress our, environment. Environmental law can be a tool for communication about the importance of devotion to the common good. To encourage you to stand on the common ground of the environment to reaffirm our democracy, and to use environmental law to underscore the importance of common ground on the environment and the rule of law, I provide examples from 3 cases I have worked on. The first example is the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill. on which I have spent many years. People in our country want clean water in our rivers, lakes, streams, and oceans to drink, to swim, and to fish in, to support fish and wildlife, to support health and enjoyment. This desire for clean water is common ground for discussion among people of different views about how to secure that end. Moreover, we have laws in our country to reach this goal. Our most basic clean water law, the Federal Clean Water Act, was enacted as a response to the Cuyahoga River catching fire because it was so polluted. Its companion, the Oil Pollution Act of 1990, was a response to the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Implementation of these laws, the rule of law, underscores how environmental protection through environmental law can bring people together. The facts of the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill of 2010 have been thoroughly presented on television at the time and more recently in a commercial movie. So I will be very brief. Starting in April 2010, April 20, 2010, a wellhead blowout from the Deepwater Horizon oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico killed 11 people, injured others, and dumped 4.9 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico until it was stopped 87 days later. In addition to the lives lost, this huge disaster caused enormous environmental and economic damage. The Clean Water Act and Oil Pollution Act encourage compliance through punishment for noncompliance, especially when it causes environmental and economic damage, and provides help for the people and ecosystems adversely affected. The laws establish civil and criminal penalties for those who cause spills and requirements that those who cause spills must restore the natural resources to the condition they would have been in without the spill, as well as compensate for lost use of those resources. This BP Deepwater Horizon spill caused grave injury, environmental damage, and loss of jobs and livelihood to a large number of people of 5 states in the Gulf: Louisiana, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas. These are states where many members of the public and state politicians stress their concern about so-called federal overreach and overregulation. Yet the injury was great and the interest in punishment, compensation, and restoration serious. Using the framework of the Clean Water Act and the Oil Pollution Act, as well as other laws, 5 Republican governors, a mix of state attorneys general, and the Obama administration agencies worked together for more than 6 years to develop legal cases, develop restoration plans, identify projects for $1 billion of early restoration funding provided by BP, and ultimately to settle the civil lawsuits, including the natural resource damages components, for many billions of dollars. The federal government also obtained criminal plea agreements from several companies, including BP, with most of the multi-billion-dollar fines going to Gulf restoration. The natural resource damage restoration plans have been developed with extensive public participation, including multiple public meetings and briefings, and a full environmental impact statement under the National Environmental Policy Act. Work on a number of projects has commenced, and plan implementation will continue for 15 years. Some projects have been completed, and the Gulf is on its way to being environmentally restored from this horrendous environmental catastrophe. All of this work reaffirms the public's support for clean water and implicitly for the laws that protect it, as well as for enforcement of those laws. In cases like this, we stand on the common ground of environmental restoration and protection to affirm the rule of law and reknit the social contract. Example 2, Triana, Alabama Superfund site. The American people do not want to live or work near toxic dump sites. In late 1980, building on earlier hazardous waste treatment cases and responding to such catastrophes as Love Canal in New York and Valley of the Drums in Kentucky, Congress enacted a statute with a very long name, the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, also known as CERCLA or the Superfund Law. Those responsible for contributing to hazardous waste sites have a joint and several obligation to clean them up. Cleanup is expensive, and companies and individuals have not liked to pay, so implementing this statute has met with significant resistance. With amendment, improved implementation approaches and practices, and successful outcomes, the Superfund law has helped deter unlawful handling of hazardous substances and effected many successful cleanups and land reuses. Again, a specific example that I worked on with details drawn, I note, from the EPA website. From 1947 to 1970, Olin Corporation manufactured DDT in a facility at least from the Federal Army Corps of Engineers near the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. In 1970, Olin shut down the plant, leaving behind extensive DDT contamination from wastewater discharged into the Huntsville Spring Branch, a nearby river, and from spills during the manufacturing process. In 1979, the Tennessee Valley Authority released a report showing contamination of fish near Triana, Alabama, at 40 times the federal limit. Triana is a small town downstream from the Olin facility that has an African-American population and had a vigorous mayor, Clyde Foster. Mayor Foster persuaded the Centers for Disease Control to test some of the residents who turned out to have high blood levels of DDT. In 1980, the residents of Triana filed a tort suit against Olin, and on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Justice sued Olin for cleanup, later adding a claim under the new Superfund law. Multiple federal agencies had a role at the site. Experts were engaged and extensive discovery was taken. Triana had competent counsel who worked closely with Department of Justice lawyers. Ultimately, white residents of areas nearby filed their own tort suit as well. Eventually, the very diligent federal Judge Probst, to whom the cases were assigned, convened a meeting and specified a settlement judge who brought all the parties together around a common settlement in principle that after many late nights and phone calls, including with Judge Probst, was finalized on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1982. Olin's cleanup of the DDT in the area around the Redstone Arsenal went on for 10 years. Testing in 1995 showed DDT contamination levels down 97% in the water and approximately 86% in the fish. In addition, Olin compensated individuals $19 million over a 5-year period and established a $5 million health care program. In sum, because people want environmental cleanups, there is support for implementation of this law by affected people, with a caution that responsible parties are often concerned about the expense. This is the rule of law at work. Example 3, protecting public lands, the Northwest Forest Plan. The United States has extensive national forests and rangelands managed by the U.S. Forest Service. A recent report notes, quote, "Our forests and rangelands are national treasures. 60 million Americans rely on drinking water that originates on our 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands. They support 200,000 jobs and contribute over $13 billion to local economies every year," close quote. While there may be strong disagreements over how these lands are managed, public support for these forests and for the clean water that comes from them is strong. These forests are managed under federal laws, including the National Forest Management Act of 1976. Managing forests includes consideration of the habitat that some of them provide for endangered and threatened species under the Endangered Species Act, and public participation under the National Environmental Policy Act, among other laws. Managing the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest became especially contentious. I've been told to stop till the train whistle stops. Okay? All right. Managing the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest became especially contentious in the late 1980s as the timber industry chose to blame its economic decline on endangered species protection, symbolized by the spotted owl. Although in 1990 the owl was listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, the Forest Service proceeded with timber sales that affected the owl's habitat. Under the applicable laws in 1991, federal Judge William Dwyer enjoined all federal timber sales in the area until the Forest Service came up with a plan for the owl. Facing a jobs versus the environment and war on the woods outcry, and I must say I think jobs and the environment versus the environment is a false dichotomy, but reluctant to continue to defend a decision for a waiver under the so-called God Squad provision of the Endangered Species Act, in spring 1993, new President Bill Clinton convened the Northwest Forest Summit. At the summit, the president said, "The government's effort must be scientifically sound, economically credible, and legally responsible." The new administration committed to evaluating and developing a plan that would provide 1 billion board feet of timber per year from federal forests and also environmental protection. I note that several of the Vermont Law School faculty were involved in some of these cases. I arrived back at the Justice Department a few months after the summit and quickly began work to assure that the plan would meet legal requirements so that we could get the injunction on sales lifted. This effort required reconciling a large number of interests in a new administration. Agencies were only beginning to learn to work together, and legal advice regarding specific steps to meet the law was not always eagerly welcomed. With extensive analysis, scientific input, and an environmental impact statement developed with public involvement, a plan for providing for substantial timber sales and environmental protection was finally adopted. The government moved to lift the injunction so that, with appropriate environmental protections, timber sales could move forward. In a detailed opinion issued on December 21st, 1994, a great holiday present, Judge Dwyer upheld the plan, giving approval to the facts that many agencies had worked together, that they had taken an ecosystem approach to the resources, and that they planned for continuing monitoring and adjustment if necessary. The decision was upheld on appeal. Crucially, the framework of the environmental laws established standards that provided ground rules for developing a plan that took into account the full range of interests. Government, timber companies, environmental groups, and others were bound by this law decision. You may ask, where was the common ground here, since some wanted to cut timber and others wanted to protect the environment? But healthy forests are essential to growing timber over time, and the common interest in protecting forests provides such common ground. Thus, there is a basis to begin discussion on public lands as well, taking into account environmental protection and jobs under the rule of law. A quick mention of clean air and climate change, another key area that I mention only briefly. All of us value clean air, to breathe, to protect our health, to see the scenery clearly. The Clean Air Act provides a complicated but effective framework for reducing air pollution across the country. Since greenhouse gases that cause climate change pollute the air, it also provides a basis to begin to regulate and limit those greenhouse gases, particularly in the absence of action by Congress. Despite contention to the contrary, most Americans are concerned about climate change. Discussions about the common ground of wanting clean air and addressing climate change for ourselves and our children and grandchildren may be a basis for coming together and emphasizing the role of existing law in meeting these challenges. So where do these examples leave us? In each of these examples, environmental improvement could be achieved only by people working together, including to accommodate seemingly competing interests. No one can clean up a river or improve air quality alone. To improve or maintain a clean and healthy environment, we need cooperation. Further, in each of these examples, existing laws provide a basis for addressing environmental issues, including a framework for cooperation and helping to resolve disputes. People or companies may complain about the expense and complexity of complying with those laws, but the laws provide a framework that we expect people to follow. That is what the rule of law means. Finally, in each example, standing on the common ground of environmental protection, we used the rule of law to address concerns and make improvements. It is on that common ground that I urge you to stand. For our graduates, you have the privilege of a law education and an important grounding in the rule of law that is a foundation of our nation's social contract. It is your opportunity and your obligation. I urge you to use your experience and knowledge to act, regardless of your politics or party, to work with others to assure that they understand the importance of the rule of law to our nation and to our democracy. First, participate in our democracy. Register to vote and vote. Help others to do so. Call, email, and write your legislators, federal, state, and local. Read bills, talk to neighbors, go to demonstrations, write letters to the editor, comment on regulations, handle pro bono cases, consider running for office. Be engaged, get others to engage, make your views known. Second, in particular as graduates of the preeminent environmental law school, I urge you to stand on the common ground of the environment to educate people about the importance of and need for the rule of law to the working of our democracy. Consider what is important to you in our physical environment and why. Is it a special river, a hiking trail, a green mountain vista, a park, a backyard garden, a fishing hole? What are your stories about why it's important to you? Then seek out the doubters of the vitality of our democracy and denigrators of our environmental laws. Talk to them and hear their stories. Even those who decry our democracy and those who challenge our government's role in protecting the environment are likely to have an environmental concern that matters to them. Consider how you can use environmental law or other law you have learned about here to build a bridge to understanding of the importance of laws and the role of law more generally. State the legal principles in plain English. Remember that in a 2014 poll, only 36% of adults knew the three branches of our American government. Your efforts can surely make a difference. For family and friends who are here to honor the graduates, I urge you to learn from the graduates you honor so that you can become active yourselves to secure these fundamental values of our nation. For the faculty among us, great thanks for your crucial role in furthering the fundamental values of our nation by teaching about the rule of law, our Constitution, and the principles of our democracy. Please keep it up. For all of us, the hope in this challenging time for our country is in the actions we can take and work we can do to reaffirm the principles of our democracy, including the rule of law. One final note of optimism and encouragement. Senator Robert Kennedy in June 1966 spoke eloquently in South Africa about the importance of taking action. He said, "Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance," close quote. Standing on the common ground of the environment and its protection, let us contribute to that current to assure the future of our country and our democracy through the rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois Schiffer, for that message. I should say to you, I grew up in northeastern Ohio, and I can remember when the Cuyahoga River was on fire. And because of that federal environmental legislation, not only is Lake Erie an effective fishery again, but so is the Cuyahoga River. And now we begin the business of the day. Dean Muhuali, will you please present the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Law, honoris causa?
So these are the honorary degrees. Lois Schiffer, you are a crusader for the environment, as we saw. One of the United States' foremost environmental lawyers. You've long been a leader on issues of environmental protection in your community and the world. Your rigorous oversight of legal issues relating to management of the nation's marine fisheries, protection of marine mammals, threatened and endangered species, coastal zone management, as well as the monitoring of oceanic, atmospheric, and climate data have served to strengthen the nation's policies relating to protection of the natural resources. As the top environmental lawyer in the United States Department of Justice under Bill Clinton, your thoughtful imprimatur is on every major policy decision relating to the environment during that time. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, and I welcome you to all of the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Thank you. Chairman Archambault, will you please stand and come forward? Now you have to stand and listen. David Archambault, you have emerged as a global leader for Indigenous peoples' rights, serving as the 45th Tribal Council Chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe in North and South Dakota. You have a history of leadership prior to assuming the chairmanship of the council, Tribal Council, your direction of a workforce development project through the United Tribes Technical College. You provided opportunities to many who may not otherwise found productive work, in turn supporting the businesses that needed trained employees. And now, as tribal chairman, you fight tirelessly to improve the lives of those in your community, not only by protecting the natural resources of Standing Rock, but also by finding innovative ways to improve tribal governance. Your work in this arena stretches beyond the borders of your immediate community. Your leadership of the struggle against the Dakota Access Pipeline shines a light on issues of water quality and gives strength to Native American voices across the country, underpinning the efforts of so many who fight to protect our country's natural resources. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, and I welcome you to all of the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Congratulations. Now you get footing. Justice Dooley, will you please stand and come forward? John Augustine Dooley, you came to Vermont in 1968 from your native New Hampshire and Boston College Law School as a federal court law clerk. Thus, you began a life of public service. You subsequently directed Vermont Legal Aid and served as Governor Cunan's Secretary of Administration. In 1987, she appointed you to the court, where you have sat with honor, distinction, and unbounded energy. Your 904 clearly articulated opinions, how about that, range from your concurrence in Baker versus Vermont, a decision giving early recognition to same-sex unions, to hundreds of cases which, in your words, little interesting parts, presented puzzles to be solved. Beyond the bench, your national leadership on many administrative issues helped bring Vermont's courts into the 21st century, and you opened Vermont to the wider world through the Vermont Karelia Rule of Law Project and the Russian-American Rule of Law Consortium. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, and I welcome you to all of the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Congratulations.
Vice Dean Mears will now present the candidates for the degree of Juris Doctor and the joint degrees of Juris Doctor and Master of Environmental Law and Policy, Master of Energy Regulation and Law, or Master of Food and Agricultural Policy and Law. Dean Mears.
Will the candidates for the degree of Juris Doctor and the joint degrees of Juris Doctor and Master of Environmental Law and Policy, Juris Doctor and Master of Energy Regulation and Law, and Juris Doctor and Master of Food and Agricultural Law and Policy, please stand. Chair Dutton. Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidates for the degree of Juris Doctor and the joint degrees of Juris Doctor and Master of Environmental Law and Policy, Juris Doctor and Master of Environmental Regulation and Law, and Juris Doctor and Master of Food and Agricultural Law and Policy.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree or degrees listed after your name, and I welcome you to all of the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please come to the platform as Dean Mears calls your name. I'll present you with your diploma or diplomas, assisted by Dean Muhuali. In addition, those graduates who have completed certificate programs will receive a certificate to that effect at this time. Deputy Vice Dean Beth McCormick and Associate Deans Shirley Jefferson and Melissa Scanlon will assist you in the donning of the hood or hoods appropriate to your academic attainments. We congratulate you on earning the degrees of Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, Master of Energy and Regulation and Law, and Master of Food and Agriculture Law and Policy. I ask the audience to withhold its applause, yeah, right, until all degrees have been awarded.
Kelsey R. Bain, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, magna cum laude. Sarah Barnowski, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Gregory Aaron Berry, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Rebecca Ann Blackman, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Sabrina Blasi, Juris Doctor. Beth Boots, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, summa cum laude. Emma Rose Boyle, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Luis Breyer, Juris Doctor. Bailey Elizabeth Bringhurst, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy. Hannah Kathleen Brubach, Juris Doctor, cum laude, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, magna cum laude, Certificate in Water Resource Law. Jessica Renee Bullock, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude, Certificate in Criminal Law. Anna Marie Burke, Juris Doctor. Rachel Campbell, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy. Matthew Carr, Juris Doctor, cum laude, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, cum laude, Certificate in Water Law. Jerry Carter, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Certificate in Business Law. Martine Lee Casey, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy. Veronique Charles, Juris Doctor. Alexander Chisler, a Juris Doctor. Laura Christensen, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Climate Law, Certificate in Energy Law. Leif Nikolai Koch Rasmussen, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Business Law. Natalie Kaleo, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Olivia Yvette Cruz, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy. Timothy Cunningham, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Master of Environmental Law and Policy with distinction. Stephen Curry, Juris Doctor. Katie Davis, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. Alexander Dean, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. John Deaver, Juris Doctor. Luke Donegan, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Natalie Donis, Juris Doctor. Letson Bay Douglas, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. Hans Eisenbach, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. Sheena Fortner, Juris Doctor. Ryan Friedman, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Criminal Law. Brian Fuchs, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Jordan Arliss Quinton Gaither, Juris Doctor. Cedar Marie Wilkie Gillette, Juris Doctor. Rakayla Green, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Eric Brennan Guzman, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy. Logan Harrell, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, summa cum laude, Certificate in Water Resources Law. Laura Jean Hartz, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. DJ Haskin, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. I hesitate to say this next name. Brianna Hayes, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Master of Environmental Law and Policy, magna cum laude, Certificate in Business Law. Paige Alyssa Henser, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy. Adrian Hernandez, Juris Doctor. Anna Lee Hofford, Juris Doctor. Joy Hostat, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Zachary Hosed, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Heather May Hebner, Juris Doctor, Master of Energy Regulation and Law, magna cum laude, Certificate in Business Law. Wenhui Ji, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Masters in Energy Regulation and Law. William Johnson, Juris Doctor. Mac Jones, Juris Doctor. Tucker Jones, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Certificate in Criminal Law. Maggie Catherine Kane, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Patrick Kenny, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Ben Kia, Juris Doctor. Dylan James King, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, certificate in energy law. Greta Kaiser, Juris Doctor. Brianna Klaber, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Jinjira Kanurnshield, Juris Doctor, Masters in Energy Regulation and Law. Ashley Crick, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Masters in Energy Regulation and Law, cum laude. Maxwell Krieger, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Elijah LaChance, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. Jeremiah Lama, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Business Law. Camille Natasha Lambert, Juris Doctor. Alexis Marguerite Lunetta, Juris Doctor. Patrick Maris, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. Josephine Maressa, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Energy Law. Haley Irene McClenahan, Juris Doctor, cum laude, Certificate in Business Law. Mitchell Lewis Mender, Juris Doctor. Charlotte Mikat Stevens, Juris Doctor, cum laude, Masters of Environmental Law and Policy, magna cum laude, Certificate in Food and Agriculture Law. Nathan James Morgan, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, Certificate in Water Law. Yannick Delon Murray, Juris Doctor. Amanda Danielle Naranjo, Juris Doctor. Cami Naylor, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Zoe Wolf Newman, Juris Doctor. Kelsey Nobis, Juris Doctor. Natasha Patel, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Experiential Advocacy. Amy Elizabeth Pickering, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Certificate in Experiential Advocacy. Ashley Post, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Shane Prate, Juris Doctor. John Pritchard, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Which one is coming up? Charlotte Rand, Juris Doctor. Angel Rayford, Juris Doctor. Jonas Reagan, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Gabrielle Renier, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Ruth Roberts, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. Andrew James Grant Rome, Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. Santiago Romero, Juris Doctor. Kyler Carl Rowley, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Georgina Salcido, Juris Doctor, Master in Energy Regulation and Law, magna cum laude, Certificate in Business Law. Catherine Shea, Juris Doctor. Brendan Scherer, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Criminal Law. Andrea Jo Schweitzer, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, Certificate in Dispute Resolution. Victoria Scozzaro, Juris Doctor, cum laude, Certificate in Criminal Law. Sarah Cease, Juris Doctor. Harsharon Kaur Sikhan, Juris Doctor. Nancy Singh, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy. Coral Skeen, Juris Doctor, cum laude, Master of Food and Agriculture Law and Policy, summa cum laude. David Edward Sloan, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Masters in Energy Regulation and Law, summa cum laude, Certificate in Climate Law. Morgan Elizabeth Slovin, Juris Doctor, cum laude, Certificate in Climate Law. Teddy Smaragdis, Juris Doctor. Audrey Smith, Juris Doctor, Certificate in Criminal Law. Bonnie Lee Smith, Juris Doctor. Elizabeth Smith, Juris Doctor, cum laude. Mark Smith, Juris Doctor, Masters in Energy Regulation and Law, magna cum laude. Hannah Solomon, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude. Jack Spicer, Juris Doctor, Master of Environmental Law and Policy, Certificate in Water Law. Dylan Spice, Juris Doctor. Benjamin Swisher, Juris Doctor. Rachel Lorraine Thompson, Juris Doctor, magna cum laude, Certificate in Criminal Law, Certificate in Experiential Advocacy. Jacqueline Velasquez Bryan, Juris Doctor. Alfonso Villegas, Juris Doctor. Shakia Woods, Juris Doctor.
Associate Dean Melissa Scanlon will now present the candidates for the degree of Master of Environmental Law and Policy.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Environmental Law and Policy please stand? Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidates for the degree of Master of Environmental Law and Policy.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Environmental Law and Policy, and I welcome you to all of the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please come to the platform as Dean Scanlon calls your name. I will present you with your diploma, assisted by Dean Muhuali. Deans McCormick and Jefferson will assist you in the donning of the hood, signifying your academic attainments. We congratulate you on earning the degree of Master of Environmental Law and Policy.
Camille Allen, with distinction. Kevin Davis. Dana Drugmond. Krista Early. Danielle Fulmer, with distinction. Adriana Gelpi. Alexandra Goyette, summa cum laude. Angie Homola, summa cum laude. Blair Ashley Jessup. Justin Lentz. Thomas Lopiano. Amelia Marchand, cum laude. Michael Melchior. James Maxwell Nash Howe. Jean O'Connor. Caitlin O'Halloran, with distinction. Sophia Rafikova. Derek Sharon. Olivia Turcotte. Rachel Page Welsh. Diana Whittington.
Associate Dean Melissa Scanlon will now present the candidates for the degree of Master of Energy Regulation and Law.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Energy Regulation and Law please stand? Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidate for the degree of Master of Energy Regulation and Law.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Energy Regulation and Law, and I welcome you to all the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please, you're already here.
I'll just say your name. Janelle Middleton.
Associate Dean Melissa Scanlon will now present the candidates for the degree of Master of Food and Agriculture Law and Policy.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Food and Agriculture Law and Policy please stand? Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidates for the degree of Master of Food and Agriculture Law and Policy.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Food and Agriculture Law and Policy, and I welcome you to all of the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please come to the platform as Dean Scanlon calls your name, and I will present you with your diploma, assisted by Dean Muhuali. Dean Jefferson and Center for Agriculture and Food Systems Director Laurie Restino will assist you in donning the hood, signifying your academic attainments. We congratulate you on earning the degree of Master of Food and Agriculture Law and Policy.
Shannon Rodeffer. Whitney Shields. Renee Franche Smith. Jeffrey Paul Sokilik.
Associate Dean Scanlon will now present the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Environmental Law.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Environmental Law please stand? Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Environmental Law.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Laws in Environmental Law, and I welcome you to all the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please come to the platform as Dean Scanlon calls your name. I'll present you with your diploma, assisted by Dean Muhuali. Dean Jefferson and Dean McCormick will assist you in donning the hood, signifying your academic attainments. We congratulate you on earning the degree of Master of Laws in Environmental Law.
Elizabeth Bennett. Morgan Lee Hickson Frey. Kayla Hauser. Haitang Lee. Stella Okolo. Lisa Wolinski, magna cum laude. Xiaoyu Zhang. Bingcheng Zhu.
Associate Dean Melissa Scanlon will now present the candidate for the degree of Master of Laws in Energy Law.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Energy Law please stand? Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Energy Law.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Laws in Energy Law, and I welcome you to all the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please come to the platform as Dean Scanlon calls your name, and I will present you with your diploma, assisted by Dean Muhuali. Dean Jefferson and Dean McCormick will assist you in donning the hood, signifying your academic attainments. We congratulate you on earning the degree of Master of Laws in Energy Law.
Laura Sheeb. Amber Widmeyer.
Associate Dean Melissa Scanlon will now present the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Food and Agriculture Law.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Food and Agriculture Law please stand? Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in Food and Agriculture Law.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Laws in Food and Agriculture Law, and I welcome you to all of the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please come to the platform as Dean Scanlon calls your name, and I will present you with your diploma, assisted by Dean Muhuali. Dean Jefferson and Director Restino will assist you in donning the hood, signifying your academic attainments. We congratulate you on earning the degree of Master of Laws in Food and Agriculture Law.
Ellen Griswold, with distinction. Gabriella Steyer, with distinction.
International and Comparative Law Program Director Pamela Stevens will now present the candidates for the degree of Master of Laws in American Legal Studies. The LLM in American Legal Studies is an advanced degree program for students who already hold a law degree from an institution outside the United States. The LLM was developed as part of an innovative dual degree program with the University of Cergy-Pontoise in Paris, France.
Will the candidates for the degree of Masters of Law in American Legal Studies please stand? Chair Dutton, I have the honor to present the candidates for the degree of Masters of Law in American Legal Studies.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Vermont Law School, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Laws in American Legal Studies. And I welcome you to the honors, privileges, and obligations pertaining thereto. Please come to the platform as Director Stevens calls your name, and I will present you with your diploma, assisted by Dean Muhuali. Dean Jefferson and Dean McCormick will assist you in donning the hood, signifying your academic attainments. We congratulate you on earning the degree of Master of Laws in American Legal Studies.
Angelina de Beaupuy. Madeleine dos Santos Marcos. Rachel Awono Ndi. Celine Parente. Rizlan Sabiani. Fiorello Shatti. Chelsea Wenshi. And Pauline Wemel.
Members of the faculty, staff, Board of Trustees, alumni, and families and friends, please recognize with your applause the achievements and distinctions of Vermont Law School's 42nd graduating class, the class of 2017. I would like to thank our piper, Ben Montross, who led the procession, and the musicians of Royal Town Brass. I would also like to thank Kathy McCullough for her careful planning and preparation for this event, as well as all members of the staff, the student marshals, and others whose assistance was essential. After the rendition of the national anthem, the bagpiper and the student marshals will lead the academic procession from the tent. I'll ask the audience to remain in place until the conclusion of the academic procession. The academic procession will then proceed back to campus. Family and friends may follow the procession to the campus, where you're invited to join us, greeting the graduates and share refreshments on the back lawn of Debevoise Hall. This concludes the proceedings of Vermont Law School's 42nd commencement.
Thank you.